I lost my dream scholarship to Harvard because of anonymous photos that destroyed my reputation. When I discovered my own sister was behind it, I uncovered a secret she'd been hiding for years, one that would cost her everything she'd ever worked for. This is my story of betrayal, and a revenge that changed our family forever. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let me know where you're listening from in the comments. I never imagined the person who was supposed to have my back would be the one holding the knife. My name is Nicole and I'm 18 years old. Well, I was 18 when my entire world collapsed in the span of a single email. You know that moment when everything you've worked for just evaporates? When years of late nights, sacrificed friendships and relentless studying become meaningless because someone decided you didn't deserve your dreams? Yeah, that was my Tuesday. I was sitting in my bedroom, the acceptance letter from Harvard still pinned to my corkboard like some kind of trophy, when my laptop pinged. The subject line made my stomach drop: regarding your admission status, urgent. My hands actually shook as I opened it. The words blurred together at first, but certain phrases cut through like glass. Inappropriate behavior. Photographic evidence. Revocation of scholarship offer. Effective immediately. I read it 3 times. Then 5. Then I lost count because I couldn't breathe properly anymore. There were attachments, photos of someone who looked exactly like me at what appeared to be a wild party. This girl was dancing on tables, holding red cups, her shirt riding up, surrounded by drunk college guys. Except it wasn't me. It couldn't be me because I'd never been to a party like that in my life. My idea of cutting loose was finishing homework early enough to watch Netflix for an hour before bed. But the face, God, the face was mine. My exact face. Someone had taken my photos from my social media, probably, and pasted them onto someone else's body. And they'd done it well. Well enough to fool Harvard's admissions committee. Well enough to destroy everything I'd built. I called the admissions office immediately, my voice cracking as I tried to explain. There's been a mistake. These photos aren't real. I wasn't at that party. I can prove it. The woman on the other end was polite but firm. They'd conducted a thorough review. An anonymous source had provided detailed information. The decision was final. I could reapply in a year if I wished. When I told my parents that evening, I expected shock, outrage, some kind of parental fury on my behalf. Instead, my father barely looked up from his tablet. Well, Nicole, maybe this is a sign that Harvard wasn't the right fit anyway. My mother nodded, already refilling my sister Claire's wine glass. Honestly, sweetheart, you've been so stressed. Maybe a gap year would be good for you. You could volunteer somewhere, find yourself. Find myself? I'd found myself just fine. I'd found a girl who earned a 4.0 GPA, who tutored underclassmen for free, who volunteered at the hospital every weekend, who got accepted to Harvard with a full ride. But apparently that girl wasn't enough. Claire, my 21-year-old sister, reached across the table and squeezed my hand with this practiced sympathy that made my skin crawl. Oh, Nicole. I'm so sorry this happened to you. But you know, maybe Mom and Dad are right. Harvard can be really intense, and with everything you've been through, maybe it's actually a blessing in disguise? A blessing in disguise. My destroyed future was a blessing in disguise. I'd spent my entire life in Claire's shadow, and I'd convinced myself it was okay. Claire was the special one, after all. When she was 12, she got diagnosed with severe learning disabilities, dyslexia, processing disorders, the works. Suddenly, every family conversation revolved around Claire's struggles. Every achievement she managed, no matter how small, was celebrated like she'd won a Nobel Prize. Meanwhile, my straight A's were met with a shrug and a "well, you're naturally smart." Claire has to work twice as hard for her B's. When Claire needed expensive private tutors, my parents wrote the checks without hesitation. When I asked for an SAT prep course, Dad told me to figure it out at the library. When Claire made Dean's List at her university, with all her special accommodations and extra time, of course, my parents threw her a dinner party. When I got my Harvard acceptance, my mom said, "That's nice, dear," and went back to discussing Claire's schedule. I told myself I understood. Claire needed more support. Claire was fighting harder battles. I should be grateful that things came easily to me. I should be the understanding little sister. The following weekend, my parents hosted a family gathering. Aunts, uncles, cousins, everyone crammed into our dining room while my mother showed off Claire's latest accomplishment like it was the Mona Lisa. My Aunt Linda asked about my Harvard plans, and I watched my mother's face tighten. Actually, Nicole's taking a different path now. We're very proud of Claire making Dean's List, though. It's such an achievement given her challenges. I excused myself to the bathroom and heard my mother's voice drift down the hallway. She was talking to Aunt Linda in that hushed tone that somehow carries perfectly. We always knew Claire was special. She's a fighter. Nicole is just adequate. Bright enough, but nothing extraordinary. Adequate. The word lodged itself in my chest like a splinter. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept staring at those photos on my laptop, trying to understand who hated me enough to do this. The manipulation was professional grade. Whoever created these had skill and access to my photos. I started checking metadata, timestamps, anything that might give me a clue. That's when I noticed it. The date stamp on one photo, it was from last April, a Friday night. I remembered that Friday. I'd been volunteering at the hospital, reading to pediatric patients. I had badge swipes, sign-in sheets, everything. I was nowhere near that party. Someone hadn't just found photos of me partying. Someone had created them. Deliberately, carefully, with the specific intention of destroying my Harvard scholarship. My mind started racing through possibilities. Who would want to hurt me like this? Who had the motive? I didn't have enemies. I barely had a social life. I was the quiet, studious one who everyone forgot about. Then a thought crept in, cold and terrible. Who had access to all my photos? Who knew exactly when I'd gotten my Harvard acceptance? Who stood to benefit from me being knocked down a peg? No, I pushed the thought away. That was crazy. That was paranoid. Claire was my sister. She'd been nothing but supportive, even if our parents played favorites. She wouldn't. She couldn't. But the thought wouldn't leave. It burrowed deeper, whispering poison. I thought about Claire's laptop, how she always kept it password protected, how she never let anyone touch it. I thought about how she'd been the first person I'd told about Harvard, squealing with excitement while something flickered behind her eyes. My hands moved before my brain caught up. Claire had left her laptop on the kitchen counter, open for once. She was upstairs taking a shower. I had maybe 10 minutes. I shouldn't. This was wrong. This was violating her privacy. But my future was already violated, wasn't it? I opened her files, my heart hammering. There was a folder buried in her documents, labeled innocuously and project. I clicked it, and my entire world shattered. If you're as shocked as I was in that moment, please hit the like button. And if you think you know what I found in that folder, drop your guesses in the comments below. Don't forget to share this story with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe because what happens next will blow your mind. Trust me, you don't want to miss how this unfolds. The folder contained my face. Dozens of versions of my face, each one photoshopped onto different bodies in different compromising positions. Original photos of me from Instagram, from Facebook, from family gatherings, all neatly organized in subfolders labeled by date. Another folder called Harvard Finals held the exact images that had destroyed my scholarship. But that wasn't even the worst part. There were draft emails, 17 of them. Each one practicing a different voice, a different concerned citizen persona. As someone who cares about academic integrity, I felt obligated to report. It pains me to share this, but Claire had workshopped her betrayal like a term paper, perfecting her anonymous tip until it sounded believable enough to fool an Ivy League admissions committee. I sat there staring at the screen, physically unable to move. My own sister had spent weeks, maybe months, crafting my destruction. The girl I'd defended to skeptical teachers who wondered if her disabilities were exaggerated. The sister I'd tutored through high school math because she claimed the numbers jumbled together. The person I'd loved unconditionally my entire life had systematically dismantled my future. My hands were shaking so badly I almost closed the laptop. Almost. But something made me keep looking, keep clicking through folders. Maybe I needed to see how deep this went. Maybe I needed the pain to be complete before I could process it. That's when I found the other folder. Accommodation backup. Inside were documents that made my blood run cold. Google search histories dating back years, how to fake dyslexia symptoms, learning disability test answers, best excuses for extra time. Screenshots of text conversations with her best friend Megan. LOL, my parents totally bought the dyslexia thing. I basically get to take untimed tests. It's such a cheat code. Another message, why would I study normally when I can just get double time on everything? I'm not stupid. There were bank statements showing payments from other students. Claire had been taking exams for them, using her accommodation letters to get private testing rooms. then selling her services. $75 per test. She'd made thousands. Photos of her accommodation letters to the university, filled with symptoms she'd clearly exaggerated or invented entirely. Private journal entries about fooling the educational psychologist during her initial evaluation at 12 years old. Just acted confused and mixed up some letters. So easy, Mom cried, which was perfect. She'd been faking it. All of it. For 9 years. Every memory I had reframed itself in an instant. Claire struggling with homework while I patiently explained concepts. She'd been playing dumb, milking sympathy. Claire's emotional breakdowns over exams, pure performance art. Our parents' endless patience, their financial sacrifices, their constant worry about their struggling daughter, all of it built on lies. And I had been her biggest defender. When my 9th grade English teacher pulled me aside and gently suggested that maybe Claire was manipulating the system, I'd been furious. "You don't understand how hard this is for her," I'd said, self-righteous and certain. "She's not faking. She really suffers." I'd made that teacher apologize. The humiliation was suffocating. I'd been her shield, her character witness, her devoted little sister who vouched for her authenticity. And she'd used that loyalty to destroy me. I heard the shower turn off upstairs. Claire would be down any minute. I took screenshots of everything, my fingers flying across the keyboard. I uploaded them to 3 different cloud accounts, paranoid she'd somehow discover and delete the evidence. Then I closed the laptop exactly as I'd found it and walked calmly back to my room. That night at dinner, I watched Claire perform. Because that's what it was, a performance. She squinted at the menu like the words were dancing, even though I'd seen her reading complex novels on her Kindle without any difficulty. She mentioned her upcoming exam with that practiced anxiety, that martyred exhaustion. "I just hope my accommodations come through in time. You know how stressful the process is." My father reached over and squeezed her hand. "You're so brave, sweetheart. Your mother and I are setting up an additional trust fund for your ongoing therapy and accommodation needs. Whatever you require, we'll make sure you have it." My mother smiled at her with such tenderness it physically hurt to witness. Then she looked at me and her expression shifted to something cooler, more dismissive. "Nicole, maybe if you'd worked as hard as your sister, Harvard would have kept you. Claire has to fight for every single achievement. You could learn something from her resilience." Claire's face, I watched it carefully. For just a second, the corner of her mouth lifted. Not quite a smile, but close. A smirk. Satisfaction flickering across her features before she rearranged them back into humble martyrdom. That smirk burned itself into my brain. I excused myself, walked upstairs with measured steps, closed my door, and locked it. Then I sat on my bed and let the full weight of it crush me. 9 years of lies. 18 years of being second best. A destroyed scholarship. A lifetime of making excuses for someone who'd been playing us all. Every time I'd told myself that Claire needed extra support, that I should be understanding, that family meant sacrifice, I'd been wrong. I hadn't been understanding. I'd been a fool. My phone buzzed with a text from Claire. "You okay? You seemed quiet at dinner." The fake concern made me want to throw my phone across the room. Instead, I typed back, "Just tired. Long day." She responded with a heart emoji. I stared at that heart for a long time. Then I opened my laptop and started researching. Disability fraud, academic dishonesty policies, university honor codes, legal consequences. I learned that what Claire had done wasn't just morally bankrupt, it was criminal. She'd defrauded the State Disability Board. She'd violated her university's academic integrity policy. She'd accepted financial accommodations under false pretenses. This wasn't family drama. This was felony fraud. Claire's university had a zero-tolerance policy for academic dishonesty. Expulsion, no appeals, permanent mark on academic record. The State Disability Board investigated fraud claims aggressively and prosecuted offenders. People went to jail for this. People had their lives ruined for this. Good. I created a detailed document outlining everything I'd found. I organized the evidence chronologically. I wrote a calm, factual summary of Claire's 9-year deception. I attached every screenshot, every message, every search history, every fraudulent document. I made 4 copies of this evidence packet. Recipient 1, Claire's Dean of Students. Recipient 2, State Disability Fraud Investigation Board. Recipient 3, our parents. Recipient 4, Harvard. To clear my name, my cursor hovered over the email to the dean. This would detonate everything. Claire would be expelled. She'd lose her scholarships, all of them, because they were partially based on her supposed disability and overcoming adversity. She'd face criminal charges. Our parents would discover that their golden child was a fraud. Our family would implode. For a moment, doubt crept in. She's your sister. Family forgives. Everyone makes mistakes. But then I remembered her smirk at dinner. I remembered the methodical cruelty of those photoshopped images. I remembered 17 draft emails, each one perfecting my destruction. I remembered being called adequate while she was called special. I remembered every excuse I'd made for her, every defense I'd mounted, every time I'd diminished myself so she could shine. Claire hadn't made a mistake. She'd made a choice. Hundreds of choices over 9 years, each one designed to elevate herself by standing on my back. She'd destroyed me first. She'd smiled about it. Now it was my turn. I typed the email subject line: evidence of disability accommodation fraud and academic dishonesty, urgent investigation required. My finger hovered over send. I thought about that Harvard acceptance letter still pinned to my corkboard. I thought about my mother calling me adequate. I thought about Claire's fake sympathetic smile. I clicked send. Then I sent the second email. Then the third. The dominoes were falling now, and there was no stopping them. Those emails are in inboxes now, and Claire's world is about to explode. But before I tell you what happened next, I need you to do something. Hit the like button if this story has you hooked. Subscribe because the final act is going to leave you speechless. Share this with your friends, seriously, they need to hear this. And comment with your prediction: what do you think happens to Claire? How bad does this get? Make your guesses now, because the reality is so much more satisfying than you think. The response came faster than I expected. 72 hours after I clicked send, Claire's phone started ringing non-stop. I was in my room doing calculus homework when I heard her answer, her voice climbing from confusion to panic in seconds. What investigation? No, there must be some mistake. I have documentation. My doctors certified everything. She was lying even now, scrambling to maintain the fiction she'd built. I kept my door closed and continued working through equations, each solved problem feeling like a small victory. By day 5, Claire was suspended pending a full investigation. The university moved quickly once they reviewed my evidence. Her dean personally called our parents to inform them that Claire was barred from campus until the inquiry concluded. I was downstairs when Dad answered, watching his face cycle through confusion, then disbelief, then something that looked like grief. Claire tried calling me that afternoon. Nicole, something crazy is happening. The university thinks I faked my disability. They're saying someone sent them evidence, but it's not real. You believe me, right? Her voice had that pleading quality I'd heard 1,000 times before, that vulnerability that had always made me rush to her defense. This time, I let the silence stretch out between us before responding. I hope you figure it out, Claire. That sounds really stressful for you. My voice was flat, emotionless. I ended the call before she could respond. The State Disability Board moved slower but more thoroughly. They subpoenaed records, interviewed her doctors, cross-referenced her accommodation requests with her actual academic performance. Meanwhile, Claire's carefully constructed world was collapsing. Her boyfriend, who she'd been dating for 2 years, called her after someone anonymously sent him the evidence. He didn't even give her a chance to explain, just told her he couldn't be with someone who'd steal resources from people who actually needed them. Her friends were next. In the age of social media, news travels at lightning speed. Screenshots of her messages circulated through her university. Privileged girl fakes disability for better grades became a trending topic in local college forums. Former friends posted statements distancing themselves. We had no idea. We feel betrayed too. Claire's Instagram, once full of carefully curated photos of her overcoming challenges, became flooded with comments calling her a fraud, a thief, a liar. I watched it unfold with a detachment that probably should have worried me. But every time I felt a flicker of sympathy, I remembered those 17 draft emails. I remembered being called adequate. I remembered my demolished Harvard dreams. The family meeting happened on a Thursday evening. Mom and Dad called us both into the living room with faces like stone. The coffee table was covered with printed documents, my evidence packet, all of it. Claire walked in and froze when she saw the papers. "Sit down, Claire," Dad said. His voice carried a coldness I'd never heard directed at her before. She sat. I remained standing near the doorway, arms crossed. Mom spoke first, her voice shaking. "The university sent us copies of everything. The state board contacted us. We've spent the last week reviewing evidence of what you've done. She picked up one of the printed screenshots. Messages about faking symptoms. Search histories about deceiving doctors. Bank records showing you've been selling exam-taking services. And these, Dad held up printouts of the photoshopped images, evidence that you destroyed your sister's scholarship. Your own sister, Claire. Claire's face crumpled. She tried tears first, the weapon that had always worked before. You don't understand. I can explain everything. Someone's framing me. Nicole, please tell them this isn't real. All three of them looked at me. It's completely real, I said quietly. I found everything on your laptop 2 weeks ago. Every search, every message, every lie you've told since you were 12 years old. I gave the evidence to your university, to the state board, and to Harvard to clear my name. The color drained from Claire's face as she realized what I'd done. Then came anger, hot and desperate. You went through my personal computer? You violated my privacy. You're just jealous because Mom and Dad always loved me more. Loved you more. I laughed, and it sounded bitter even to my own ears. They loved a fictional character you created. They loved a struggling, brave daughter who needed their constant support and validation. They threw money and attention at someone who didn't exist. Meanwhile, I was right here, actually achieving things, and I was invisible. That's not. Mom started, but I cut her off. Mom, you called me adequate. At Aunt Linda's party, you said I was nothing extraordinary. You said Claire was the special one, the fighter. Do you even remember saying that? She had the decency to look ashamed. Dad couldn't meet my eyes. Claire tried a different approach, collapsing forward with her face in her hands. I'm sorry. Okay. I was jealous. Everything came so easily to you, the grades, the acceptance, everything. I just wanted something that made me special too. I didn't mean for it to go this far. You didn't mean to fake a disability for 9 years. My voice was steel now. You didn't mean to steal from people with actual learning disabilities. You didn't mean to take thousands of dollars from students by cheating for them. You didn't mean to systematically destroy my future with photoshopped evidence. Which part exactly did you not mean to do, Claire? She had no answer. The consequences rolled in like a tsunami after that. Claire was formally expelled, not suspended, expelled, from her university within the month. Every scholarship she'd received was revoked. The state filed criminal charges for disability fraud and pressed for restitution of $47,000 in accommodation funds she'd received over the years. Her lawyer negotiated a plea deal, probation, community service, repayment plan, and a permanent flag on her academic record that would follow her forever. No reputable university would touch her after that. The girl who'd built her identity on being academically accomplished despite her struggles now couldn't get admitted anywhere. Dad cut off her trust fund. You'll get a job and pay your own legal fees, he told her, his voice devoid of warmth. Mom cried constantly those first few weeks, mourning the daughter she thought she had. Their marriage fractured under the weight of mutual blame and enabling. Dad moved into the guest room. Harvard, meanwhile, reinstated my scholarship with a formal apology. They added an additional stipend for the distress their error had caused me. The admissions dean personally called to express how appalled they were by what had happened. My story went viral, major news outlets picked it up, disability advocacy groups reached out to thank me for exposing fraud that hurt legitimate students with disabilities. I moved into my dorm room that August with a strange mix of triumph and hollowness. I'd won. Claire was working retail, living at home in disgrace, attending court-ordered therapy sessions. Our parents were shattered. Justice had been served. So why did I still feel angry? 6 months into my freshman year, Claire sent a letter. Actual handwritten pages, not a text or email. She wrote about therapy, about finally confronting why she'd felt the need to construct such elaborate lies. She wrote about jealousy so consuming it had poisoned everything good in her. She asked for forgiveness she said she didn't deserve. I read it 3 times. Then I wrote back, my hand steady, what you did was unforgivable. You didn't just hurt me, you mocked people with real disabilities, you defrauded institutions, you manipulated everyone who loved you. Maybe someday, after you've actually changed and made genuine amends, we can talk. Today isn't that day. I sealed the envelope and walked across Harvard Yard to mail it. Students rushed past me toward classes, toward futures they'd earned honestly. The autumn air was crisp, full of possibility. People still ask if I regret exposing Claire. They say family should forgive, that I went too far. But here's what I learned: enabling toxic behavior isn't love, it's cowardice. My sister didn't destroy her life because I exposed her. She destroyed her own life the moment she decided to destroy mine. I just made sure she faced the consequences she'd spent 9 years avoiding. Would I do it again? Absolutely. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even, it's refusing to be a victim anymore. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and feel free to share your story or opinions in the comments.